Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Financial Literacy Webinars presented by Gainbridge, a digital platform of financial products and member of Group 1001, an insurance holding company. My name is Cheryl Lala Chavez, and I'm joined every month by Lauren Williams, a four-time Olympian and certified financial planner. And each one of our episodes will also have a Parity Athlete ambassador. This month, we welcome Lisa Dietrich, professional beach volleyball athlete, small business owner, and mom of two. Welcome to you both.
So good to be here again, Lisa. I'm really looking forward to meeting you and talking more to you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So today we are talking about small business essentials, from developing a business plan to obtaining and using credit and ensuring overall entrepreneur financial well-being. Lauren, we'll start with you as a certified financial planner. When a client says, they're opening a business or they have a small business, what are you looking to know?
Well, a very easy first step is like, what is that business? And so often, on the Parity platform, we have female athletes that are operating as businesses and don't even realize it because maybe you're not a W-2 employee of whatever organization you compete for. So you're getting income, you're earning 1099 income is what we call it, contractor income, and you are effectively a business even without demanding or saying, laying your stake in the ground and saying, I am a small business. So the first things I want to know when I'm speaking to someone who says, hey, I am getting ready to start a business is, what is that business? How long do you expect for it to take until you become profitable? What kind of expenses are you going to have as a business? And then are there any things that, maybe standing out that make your business different than other businesses out there that may be similar? Who are your competitors is probably the easiest way to say that, because it's important. You don't have to recreate the wheel in order to go into business and be successful, but it is important that you differentiate yourself in some way if you want your business to be able to grow.
Amazing. So Lisa, let's bring you into this conversation. You have a small business. As you started to develop the business plan, how much did you incorporate what Lauren is saying and some of the challenges that were, a part of that plan?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. That's what I was just thinking about is there's a lot of photography out there. There's a lot of photographers, and I was hell-bent on being different. And so when I went to create mine, I kept seeing all these business plans that were very cookie cutter, I'm a wedding photographer and that's what I'm going to shoot. And that wasn't what I wanted to do. So I had a hard time really combining what I wanted in a unique sense with what was already out there. I saw a lot of cookie cutter things that you could just purchase. You could purchase a photography business plan and that was that. And so for me, I was overwhelmed with how do I fit this huge vision that I have, this unique idea, into a business plan that makes sense and that people are going to read and respect and understand. So I was pretty overwhelmed.
Definitely. So Gainbridge, has a financial education center on their website for folks that are overwhelmed. And under the small business essentials, you'll be able to find a variety of short educational modules to understand, the financial basics of what you're talking about, Lisa, of managing a small business. These articles include guides to learn about the three most important financial statements, such as balance sheets, profit and loss statements, and cash flow reports, as well as the financial basics of entrepreneurship. Lauren, when small business owners start off, how do they pick the right financial institution for their small business banking needs?
Ooh, this is a really good question. I think the first thing is understanding your budget and what you want to accomplish from a business standpoint. So sometimes, and very frequently when people get started in business, they're just using their personal bank account and kind of operating, picking up things as they go, the only money I have to get this thing going is my own. So I'm just going to buy what I need, do what I have to, sell it, go back and forth. But it's really important as a small business owner that you be able to separate your business expenses from your personal expenses. Reason number one is you want to be able to keep a real and true tab of what your personal expenses look like. And you also want to be able to keep a real and true tab of what your business looks like. So is it actually profitable? Money may come in and you spend it, but did you actually cover the business expenses, or was this money you just need to spend because you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, pulling money from one pocket to the next? You absolutely want to separate, hey, here's my business account. Here's what I'm looking for in my business account. So, to your point, what are the things that you're looking for when you're speaking to a bank? You want to see if there's any interest in the checking account. So sometimes checking accounts will give you a small amount of interest for banking with them. Are there fees related to having a business banking account? Is there a minimum balance that you need to have on a monthly basis? Sometimes they do like an average daily balance. You need to have at least like $500 in it over the course of the 30 days on average in order to avoid fees. And then also ease of being able to put money in, accept a lot of different types of income, because sometimes you're using a swipe card and money is automatically being deposited. Sometimes it's going to be checks. What does that process look like? How easy is it going to be for me to get paid? Because ultimately, as a business owner, that's the thing that's important, right? So those are just some of the things you should be thinking about, but absolutely separating personal from business is step number one as you go through the bank account process.
Gotcha. Great advice there. And Lisa, when you think about banking for your small business, is there anything that you wish you would have known sooner or would have done differently when you were starting out, your business banking account?
Yes, there's actually a lot of things because I was in this place where I knew, right, like exactly what Lauren's saying. I knew that things needed to be separate, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing the right thing as far as income coming in and taxes and all that. And so because I was so overwhelmed and I already had money coming in, which is a good problem to have. But at that point, I just didn't know what to do with it. And I really knew that this shouldn't go into my personal account because I want to do this the right way. And so for a while, I literally would have, like, I had checks that I just wouldn't cash because I didn't know where to put them. So I was so overwhelmed by the whole process that I finally asked one of my friends who has a small business. And I said, hey, what bank do you use? Because you guys are doing a good job. And I see that you have a lot of money coming in. And I literally only asked them, and they're other athletes, they're incredibly smart. So I said, okay, that's the one that I'll just go with, because I'm at a point where if I don't cash the checks, then I won't be able to cash them. And so I ended up going with that one. But now, like, in retrospect, I wish I would have taken a little bit longer of a look at what are some of the benefits. The one I have right now is only online. So obviously there are some drawbacks with that one. So yeah, it's been quite the process. And again, like, it kind of comes down to, I didn't have the resources. I felt really overwhelmed. There's a bunch of ads, right, to set up your account with all these different companies. And when I registered the LLC, I got so much mail saying, sign up with us. And we were just like, there's tons of them. There's too many. So I wish in retrospect, I would have really gone through like the pros and cons. But ultimately, like, I'm stable with the one I have now, but something like this program would have just been incredibly helpful for me to be able to look at before I did this.
I mean, Lisa, you bring up a really good point too about the idea, like, analysis paralysis is kind of like, it gets overwhelming. And so you kind of pause and it's like, well, I have to do something. And otherwise I'll just be stuck kind of, like you said, in limbo or purgatory. So it's good that you were able to take that leap and say, like, okay, I'm going to go with this. And it was, at the recommendation of someone you've seen who has had success in that area. So, I always recommend that people get like kind of three quotes for anything, whether you're trying to get someone to look at your roof or you're opening a bank account. But ultimately, sometimes you just have to start. And it's like, relatively, what is the risk here? The risk is relatively low. If this bank stinks, I can go close it and go to a different place. So I'm glad you were able to get over that hump and that you had at least a good resource in the form of someone else that you knew who had already tried that place.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And luckily it's somebody I really deeply trusted, but getting at least, like you're saying, at minimum 3, that would have been a really great place to start. So in retrospect, that's certainly what I would encourage. Like, I would encourage anyone to do that first.
Absolutely. And so, another aspect is also the right line of credit. Lauren, how does a small business owner decide on the right line of credit for their business and obtain that credit and know kind of how much they can borrow?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing you want to do as a small business owner is assess, your need to borrow. Sometimes we feel like we absolutely need additional capital in order to be able to run our businesses when we don't. Sometimes it is a matter of just kind of holding tight a little bit while you wait for additional funds to come in that are outstanding from customers. Sometimes it is paring down your business expenses so that you actually can work and have enough money on a monthly basis. Your cash flow is a little bit off. So the first thing is to, really understand whether or not you need to take on a line of credit, because credit is ultimately a means of taking on debt. You have credit extended to you, and you are going to have to pay back whatever amount you take when you take on a line of credit. And so different options are like a personal line of credit, a line of credit specifically related to that business, or, credit card debt is also a line of credit. So you may be granted a business credit card with a $10,000 balance, but what's going to happen with the business credit card is going to have a much higher interest rate than if you took a loan from the bank based on what your business was doing. Now, the other thing to think about, though, is that maybe you're not eligible for a loan because if you go to the bank and say, hey, I need a business loan, they're going to ask for all sorts of financial information. And so you have to be financially organized in order to show them, hey, we are in good standing. We have a great plan for how we're going to increase our income and the inflows coming in. And this is why we need this money. And this is when we'll be able to pay it back. That we're actually in a good way to be able to pay the loan back. So you want to be mindful of whether you want to take on like personal credit, credit card debt, or take a line of credit from a bank as a business owner.
Awesome. Thank you. And so Lisa, when we're listening to Lauren talking about business credit, is this something that you've thought about for your small business as well?
Yeah, so I feel really grateful that what I chose to do, which is photography, there's not a lot of initial investment. At least it's minimum compared to some of these businesses. Like if I wanted to go open up a coffee shop, to buy a really great espresso machine is going to cost a lot of money that you would need up front, or like you're talking about a loan. And that's something that my whole life, when I thought about starting my small business, I said, I don't want that, because for me, that's too much to think about and too much to manage. And so starting photography and having the investment of a camera and a few lenses, I was able to purchase those on credit, knowing that I actually had at least 70% of that ready to pay those off. But I used a credit card to build some credit. And in addition, it was really easy because the credit card had a window where I wouldn't owe any interest. So it definitely made sense in that certain circumstance. I'm very wary to have any debt whatsoever, which is why I rarely use that credit card. It's only for purchasing lenses and things like that I absolutely need and that I know the income coming in will cover, because it can get very dangerous. So for me, it's something that I rarely use, but when I do have to use it, it's incredibly beneficial, because I don't want to shell out $4,000 for a new lens out of the money that I have in my pocket. So yeah, I would say that I use it like maybe once every 2 years, and it definitely comes in handy.
I love that you said that the strategy behind it all is that, you have some cash on hand. You could deplete all of your cash in order to not have that much debt, but also you'd be cash poor. And it's a huge consideration for small businesses, is making sure that you keep cash on hand for things that are going to come up, and that you don't overextend yourself in that regard. So there are great instances where, like you said, credit can really give you a little bit of breathing room to be able to, like, okay, let me pay this back over a period of time as I continue to build cash and, I continue to work on my business. Like, that's excellent.
Yeah. So shifting the conversation just a little bit, we talked earlier just a tad bit about taxes and kind of, also legal aspects of business. In Gainbridge's Financial Education Center, there is an article about financial well-being. Lauren, what advice do you have for small business owners about being prepared for taxes and legal aspects of their business?
Well, I would say thing number one is absolutely positively get an accountant. We always try to cut corners because we are small businesses just getting started, trying to keep expenses low. But the one area you don't want to cut corners is by having an accountant on your team, so you know exactly what you need to do, so you're not getting caught off guard with any tax liabilities. The second thing I always say is start setting money aside from the very beginning. So and in some of the other lessons, we've talked about the idea of pay yourself first. We also want to, as a business owner, you pay IRS first, pay Uncle Sam first, and pay yourself second, or maybe pay them at the same time. But you definitely want to make sure that as money comes in, you're continuing to set money aside so that have that money for any tax liability set already accounted for. And what I usually recommend is getting a business savings account specifically for that purpose. So you have your business checking account where all the money comes in. You have a business savings account. Usually your accountant will tell you about what percentage of your income you need to be saving. And generally, I always see it somewhere between 20 and 30%. Set that amount aside. So $1,000 comes in, you need to put over 300, to the side in your business savings account. And then your accountant will do more precise calculations as it gets time for you to either pay that quarterly or annual tax liability, but you'll know, okay, I've got this set aside, and you'll probably get a little influx of cash because you won't need all of it set aside. So absolutely set something aside for taxes, work with an accountant, and do your bookkeeping. I would say that's the other thing that a lot of business owners skip over. Bookkeeping is basically accounting for what's coming in and what's going out, categorizing what your business expenses are for, and it makes tax time a lot easier, but it also makes you understanding what's going on in your business and how to project into the future what's going on as well. Sometimes we get so caught up in the work that we love that we're like, I don't want to do this kind of chore like thing. But it is absolutely a must as a business owner that you understand what's coming in, what's going out, and that you project into the future so you know how healthy your business is.
Gotcha. Great advice there. Lisa, wanted to talk to you specifically about your photography business. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, how have you been able to build, a loyal customer base for your small business?
So for me personally, word of mouth is huge. So when I first got started, I had understood that word of mouth was one of the main marketing tools that a lot of people use in this profession. And knowing that, I picked 5 of my closest friends who had some sort of unique factor about them. And I said, hey, I would love to give you a free session if you'll just tag me on social media when you post. And you can have all these photos for free. I get to practice, you get the photos, you get to share them. And from there, it was like wildfire, because when someone's able to see your product and experience it, which for me, again, I'm really grateful that mine is really easy to share through social media. But when people are able to experience it and they understand how good it is and if it's worth the investment, which obviously a lot of people thought that it was, because of that, for every one person that I gave a free session to, I was able to get 5 referrals. So it really grew exponentially from there. So for me personally, word of mouth, that's just I don't know what I would do without word of mouth. That's where probably 99% of my business comes from.
Amazing. What a great story there. And so, the second part of that question is, what are things you would encourage all entrepreneurs to consider before starting a small business?
So one of the things that I would really encourage people to do is I would research what it is that you have to offer and what the competition looks like and what the need is for that. So I'm obviously coming from the perspective of photography, and it's a heavily saturated profession. And pretty much anywhere you look in the USA, like in the world, there is a photographer. There is a photographer doing photography, and it's landscape photography, portraits, pet photography, all of it. And so to go into something like that, I had to make sure I knew who my competition was, what my unique offering was, what the need was for the specific type of photography that I'm doing. And I would really encourage anyone. So if you have something that you've invented, whatever it is, there has to be a need for it. And there has to be like this market that is going to consume it, or they're going to find whatever it is that you're manufacturing or the service that you're offering. They have to find the value in it. And if you can't like tell us why that's valuable, if you can't tell your best friend what this need really is and get some people to buy into that and have them go, oh, wow, I didn't really think of that, or, oh, I see exactly what you're talking about. You kind of want to be able to have that so that, when people aren't just knocking your door down, like in those moments, you have to believe there is a need for this. I do see a need for this. I know that people out there can be helped by this. It's going to make their lives better, whatever it is. So if you're just starting out, I would say, look at the market, make sure this is a need and not just, hey, I'm going to manufacture leggings for athletes because I know that they need leggings. Okay, well, there's like a million different options for leggings out there. So why would I want these leggings? I think that there's a lot of people that hop into starting a small business and they get stuck because they go, oh, well, I really liked this one thing, or I liked photography. But unfortunately, there are 25 other people that do that exact photography for that exact price range in that exact zip code. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I would just highly recommend people do before making the initial investment.
I think those are some really great points, Lisa. One of the other things I think about as an entrepreneur myself is the idea that you have to be willing to ride the roller coaster. So by choosing to be an entrepreneur, there's not usually or sometimes ever a steady paycheck coming in on a regular basis. So by choosing to work for someone, you are agreeing to the terms here, and it's like you're going to get paid every other week or by twice a month or once a month, whatever the case may be. You know when it's coming, you know exactly how much you've negotiated those terms. Whereas with entrepreneurship, you got 5 clients and it's like, woohoo, I'm rich. Then all of a sudden, no clients come for 6 weeks straight. You're like, oh my goodness, I need to shut this business down. I'm a failure. So if you're not willing to ride the roller coaster of fluctuating income and really organize your own personal finances on the front end to be prepared for that fluctuating income, entrepreneurship may not be for you. The other thing I'll say is, you were talking about, like you said, oh, this seems like a really cool idea, like the leggings, is make sure that you understand like what it means to invest your time in whatever the entrepreneurial venture is that you come up with. So for me, before I started my financial company, I decided I thought that I wanted to run a food truck. And I love to cook. I absolutely love to do it. But what was I going to have to do? Cook from sun up to sundown, day in and day out, and it was going to suck all the joy out of me cooking. I didn't want to cook because I absolutely had to. I wanted to cook because I wanted to, and I didn't want to be slave to showing up, because if I'm not there on the food truck, driving around town, like there was no food truck. I love to travel, so that wasn't going to be a good fit for me. So despite, my love for food and thinking I could sell it to people, that wasn't a good business model. Instead, I picked something that is remote, a lot more flexible, and I'm able to do that while also, pursuing some of my other goals and passions. So those are the 2 big things that I would add to the, before you become an entrepreneur, make sure you're good to go in that area.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you're going to be inviting us over to dinner soon to sample that good old cooking. Yes, right, when you're home. Back to bookkeeping for a second, Lauren, because you touched on this. What's the best way for small business owners to kind of keep track of their revenue and expenses? Is there, something you use that's helpful?
There are tons of apps for that. The most popular is QuickBooks. That's what most accountants will like, and they'll even ask you to switch to it from other apps sometimes. So you want to be mindful of what's going to be convenient for the person you're working with, but it's not absolutely mandatory. And there's a lot of other great tools out there that are more affordable as well. But you definitely want to look at the bookkeeping apps that are available. So a free one that a lot of first-time entrepreneurs use is called Wave. So that's something to look into. It works very similar to QuickBooks. But like I said, there's 6 or 7 ones out there. You type in small business owner bookkeeping, and you can do like a little comparison. There's even blogs that have been written on them. But you absolutely want to have a way in 2022 that's electronic, easy to use from your phone, because sometimes we're on the road, I'd imagine in Lisa's business, at the end of it, it's like somebody needs to pay. Like you can just whip out your phone, have a card reader there, swipe, and then it's also connected to the app. You can just categorize it. Wedding for Cheryl, done. And now you don't have to worry about sitting at the end of every month in front of a computer for an hour and figuring out what was this again, what was that again. To be able to just kind of flip and swip, you're good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like, the credit card statement is outdated. A lot of folks will use that credit card statement. It's like, oh, that's my thing, and I can just categorize it later, right? No, don't do that.
Don't do that. That is the very baseline way. And like I said, it also costs a lot of money if your accountant has to go through it without you having already gone through it. And it costs a lot of your own time. So, with so much electronics available and so much tech out there, you can get a highlighter out and go through each statement, but Is it the most efficient thing to do? Probably not.
Absolutely. So Lisa, as a professional athlete, a parent, and business owner, how do you keep track of everything in all of these different life buckets?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, pretty, I try to fall into the trap, even though I want to not fall into the trap. I'm so tempted to put everything like in a folder and deal with it later. Um, I'm very bad about doing that in some aspects of my life. But when it comes to this, I think I'm so focused on doing it the right way that I force myself, I block off a period of time each day, literally each day, to work on it. So during that time, I'm not working on anything else. It's just making sure that I'm organized, making sure that I have my marketing in order, making sure that I do not have receipts that I don't know where they are, or maybe I don't know where they came from. Because to me, once that starts happening, it's all going to go down the drain. So I don't want it to snowball like that. And so I keep everything very organized, and I'm looking right now at it. There's a little area where I put things initially. And so if I see something right there on my desk, literally on my desk that I know I need to deal with, I make sure that when I've blocked off time to work on my small business, that's what I'm doing. I'm working on that. And as soon as it gets done that day, I'm putting it away into a separate folder. So, like Lauren was saying, just being organized, that is such a big deal. And for me personally, I do not want to have the consequences later on of potentially making a mistake that could cost me later down the road. I don't want to make any mistakes on the taxes. I don't want to be so disorganized that it becomes overwhelming, and then it becomes something that I just don't want to finish at all, and then I end up quitting. So as much as photography is exciting, I'm very passionate about it and I really love it. For me, I have to become passionate about keeping everything organized, because if I'm not keeping things organized on the back end, I won't be able to do the things that I really love with photography.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And Lauren, how does a business plan support an entrepreneur over the long haul of the business?
Oh, this is such a great question, because more than ever, business plans are something that people are getting away from. But if you fail to plan, you have planned to fail, is what my dad used to always say. And so having some sort of blueprint in place to be able to say, this is where I see myself going, and this is how I plan to get there, is incredibly crucial to the overall business and understanding, like, what are we trying to achieve? We go into business because we want to make money, but ultimately, are we even making money? Sometimes it's hard for someone to tell. Like $10,000 comes in, but you don't realize that $10,000 of expenses going out, and you're really just breaking even and kind of, like you said, robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's in one pocket, out the other, and it's just kind of like happening. So you absolutely want to have a business plan to be able to say, where do I want this thing to go? This year I want to make $30,000. Next year I would like to make 60. In 5 years, I think this business could make $300,000. Well, what's the path to get there? Because I know one thing that I've bumped into quite a bit is not, properly projecting, like, oh, well, I feel like this service should cost about this much. Well, how many people do I need to serve if I feel like it should cost that much? The feeling is different than, it costs $100. Well, if you want to make $100,000, you got to do a lot of service in order to be able, probably would have raised the price a little bit. So understand what your financial goals are for yourself, and that'll help you be able to project out, like, okay, if I need to make $100,000 of money for me to be able to spend, not for the business, I'm going to have to earn more than $100,000 in the business, because the business is going to have expenses. It might have employees. It's going to have taxes. So $100,000 into the business does not mean $100,000 into your pocket. And that's where you really got to understand, like, okay, well, I got to make some changes here. I got to increase fees. I have to go out and get more clients. And that's where the business plan is going to be very, very helpful.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lauren and Lisa, for such an engaging conversation on small business essentials. I appreciate both of you joining me this evening. I want to give a big thank you to our sponsor, Gainbridge, a digital platform providing direct access to trusted financial products and free financial literacy education, just like this conversation, giving your future a boost. Click on the link to find the articles we talked about today on small business essentials, as well as many more resources on financial education and literacy. We'll see you next time. Thank you.